Hello and welcome to Stories of Science. Here, we look back on humanity's long journey to understand the world. The questions, the failures, and the breakthroughs that slowly changed how we see the universe and ourselves. We tell science as stories. Venus, the planet that fooled humanity. A few decades ago, if scientists had made a most livable planet ranking in our solar system, the winner probably would have been Venus, yep. Not Mars. Venus. The bright one hanging in the sky like somebody accidentally turned the brightness slider to maximum. From a distance, Venus looked almost perfect, about the same size as Earth, similar gravity, close enough to reach without spending half a lifetime in space. To early astronomers, it felt like finding a house next door with the exact same floor plan as yours. And naturally, people started dreaming. Maybe Venus had oceans, maybe jungles, maybe strange alien animals running around under thick clouds. Some scientists even imagined future humans living there one day, relaxing near tropical beaches on another planet. Turns out, Venus had other plans. Because Venus is basically the universe saying, looks can be deceiving. The closer we looked, the worse it got. Under those beautiful glowing clouds is a world straight out of a nightmare. The surface is hot enough to melt lead, the air pressure is crushing, about 90 times stronger than Earth's, and the clouds? Not water. Sulfuric acid. Imagine booking a vacation to paradise, and landing inside a pressure cooker filled with acid rain. Talk about a wolf in sheep's clothing. For thousands of years, Venus fascinated humanity. Ancient civilizations watched it carefully because it was impossible to miss. It became a symbol of beauty, love, luck, sometimes even disaster. Before telescopes existed, people used Venus to track seasons in time. Poets loved it, but astronomers obsessed over it. Honestly, Venus had the best PR team in the solar system. Then modern science arrived with telescopes and space probes, and the illusion shattered fast. When probes finally tried landing there, most didn't survive long. Some lasted barely minutes before the heat and pressure destroyed them. A few managed to send back blurry images and quick bits of data before going silent forever. Like astronauts entering the world's worst sauna. And that's what makes Venus so fascinating. It's not just another planet. It's a cosmic plot twist. From far away, it shines like a heavenly twin of Earth. Up close, it's volcanic, toxic, violent, and absolutely unforgiving. The ultimate reminder that all that glitters is not gold. So next time you spot that brilliant star glowing in the evening sky, remember, Venus isn't just beautiful. It's one of the most extreme worlds we've ever discovered. A shining beacon above us, hiding a version of hell underneath. So next time you spot that brilliant star glowing in the evening sky, remember, Venus isn't just beautiful. It's one of the most extreme worlds we've ever discovered. A shining beacon above us, hiding a version of hell underneath. For most of human history, Venus wasn't seen as a deadly planet. It was the celebrity of the night sky. Long before telescopes existed, ancient civilizations were already obsessed with it. The Babylonians tracked it to predict seasons, the Maya tied it to religious ceremonies. In ancient China, it was called the morning star and the long gung star, one of the brightest objects humans could see above them. And honestly, it's easy to understand why. Venus shines so brightly that people once joked you could almost read a book under its light. Now, that's obviously an exaggeration. Don't throw away your lamp just yet, but still, the thing is impossible to ignore. To ancient people, Venus wasn't just a planet. It was a cosmic spotlight. Then came the telescope era, and humanity's imagination kicked into overdrive. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, astronomers stared at Venus and started wondering, could there be oceans there, rainforests, maybe even life? And once science fiction writers got involved in the 1950s and 60s, oh boy, suddenly Venus became the galaxy's dream vacation spot. Books described steaming jungles, giant oceans, strange alien creatures, and endless tropical landscapes. You could practically picture astronauts landing there in Hawaiian shirts with sunglasses and beach chairs. The funny part? At the time, the idea didn't sound completely crazy. Venus really does look a lot like Earth on paper. Its size is incredibly close, its gravity is about 90% of Earth's, meaning if you jump there, it would feel surprisingly normal, and astronomically speaking, Venus is basically our next door neighbor. Compared to the rest of the universe, it's right around the corner. So scientists thought if Earth works, maybe Venus works too. Makes sense, right? But there was one big problem. Nobody could actually see the surface. Venus is wrapped in thick clouds, and early telescopes couldn't penetrate them. That mystery let people's imaginations run wild. When humans can't see the answer, we tend to fill in the blanks ourselves. Curiosity killed the cat, but in this case, curiosity created an entire fantasy world. For decades, Venus played the role perfectly. Beautiful, bright, almost romantic. Like the friendly neighbor who smiles all the time while secretly living inside a disaster movie. Then came the 1970s, and reality hit like a freight train. The Soviet Union sent the Venera probes to Venus, and for the first time, humanity finally got a real look at the planet. What they discovered was pure nightmare fuel. No oceans. No forests. No alien civilization. Instead, Venus had surface temperatures above 470 degrees Celsius, pressure strong enough to crush machinery, and skies filled with toxic sulfuric acid clouds. Some probes survived only minutes before dying. Imagine preparing for a tropical vacation and accidentally opening the door to hell. That's Venus in a nutshell. So, remember when people thought Venus might be Earth's beautiful twin, palm trees, warm oceans, maybe even alien beach resorts? Yeah, about that. Venus turned out to be less tropical paradise and more industrial oven built by the universe itself. If Earth is a cozy living room, Venus is a pressure cooker wrapped inside a volcano. Let's start with the temperature because Venus does not believe in moderation. The average surface temperature is around 470 degrees Celsius. That's hot enough to melt lead. And here's the crazy part, Venus is actually farther from the Sun than Mercury, yet somehow it's hotter. How? Because the planet is trapped inside the worst greenhouse effect imaginable. Its atmosphere is ridiculously thick, made mostly of carbon dioxide, and it acts like a giant thermal blanket that never lets heat escape. On Earth, greenhouse gases warm the planet a little. On Venus, they went absolutely off the rails. This isn't summer heat. This is your spacecraft just turned into soup heat. And if the temperature doesn't kill you, the pressure definitely will. Standing on Venus would feel like being buried nearly a kilometer underwater. On Earth, the atmospheric pressure is about 92 times stronger than ours. Your body wouldn't stand a chance. Even machines struggle there. In the 1970s, the Soviet Union sent the famous Venera probes to Venus. One of them, Venera 7, became the first spacecraft to land successfully on another planet. Well, successfully is a generous word. It survived only minutes before the heat and pressure destroyed it. Imagine spending years building a spacecraft, only for Venus to swat it like a fly. And somehow, the sky gets even worse. The clouds on Venus aren't made of water vapor. They're loaded with sulfuric acid. Not gentle rain clouds, more like floating chemical weapons. Scientists found violent winds racing through the upper atmosphere at hurricane speeds, along with possible lightning storms flashing inside the acid clouds. Picture yourself floating there for a second. Dark yellow skies, acid mist everywhere, a wind screaming past at hundreds of kilometers per hour. It's less planet and more apocalypse simulator. And then Venus pulls out one final plot twist. Its rotation is completely backward. Most planets spin one way. Venus said, "Nah, I'm doing my own thing." The sun on Venus rises in the west and sets in the east, and one single day there lasts longer than an entire Venusian year. Think about that for a second. You could celebrate New Year's Day before finishing one full day-night cycle. Talk about backwards. To make things even stranger, the surface rotates incredibly slowly, while the upper atmosphere races around the planet at insane speeds. It's like the ground is stuck in slow motion while the clouds are competing in Formula One. By the late 1970s and early 80s, American and Soviet missions finally revealed the full picture. NASA's Pioneer Venus missions studied the atmosphere, while Soviet Venera landers captured the first images from the surface. And what they discovered shattered decades of fantasy. Venus wasn't Earth's happy twin. It was a world of crushing pressure, toxic skies, endless heat, and storms powerful enough to rip apart almost anything humans could build. A perfect example of the old saying, never judge a book by its cover. Because beneath that beautiful glowing light in our sky, Venus is one of the harshest places in the entire solar system. So after everything we've seen, the crushing pressure, acid clouds, and temperatures hot enough to melt metal, the big question becomes, what on earth happened to Venus? Was it always this horrifying? Surprisingly, maybe not. A growing number of scientists think ancient Venus may once have looked shockingly similar to Earth, not exactly a paradise, maybe, but possibly a world with oceans, clouds, rain, and stable temperatures billions of years ago. Picture it for a second. Blue water, soft clouds drifting overhead, sunlight reflecting off massive seas. A calmer Venus. A younger Venus. Almost like Earth's cousin before everything went terribly wrong. And that's the scary part. Because Venus didn't become hell overnight. It slowly cooked itself. Scientists believe the disaster began with a runaway greenhouse effect. At first, Venus likely had water on its surface, but because the planet receives far more sunlight than Earth, temperatures gradually climbed higher and higher. The oceans started evaporating. Now here's where things spiraled out of control. Water vapor is itself a greenhouse gas. So as more water entered the atmosphere, the planet trapped even more heat. That extra heat caused even more evaporation, which trapped even more heat, and then more, and more, like a car stuck with the accelerator jammed to the floor. Eventually, the oceans vanished completely. Venus basically trapped itself inside its own thermal prison, and the volcanoes made everything worse. Radar scans from NASA's Magellan mission in the 1990s revealed a surface covered in enormous lava plains and thousands of volcanoes. These eruptions pumped massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, turning Venus into a pressure-filled greenhouse on steroids. On Earth, some carbon dioxide gets absorbed by oceans and rocks. Venus lost that safety valve a long time ago, so the heat just kept building, and building, until the planet transformed into the blazing monster we see today. To make matters worse, Venus gets almost twice as much solar energy as Earth. The Sun has been hammering that planet for billions of years like a cosmic blowtorch. Little by little, Venus crossed the point of no return. And honestly, that's one reason scientists are so fascinated by it. Venus may be showing us what happens when climate systems completely lose balance. Now, Earth is nowhere near becoming Venus tomorrow. Let's not panic and start building underground bunkers just yet, but Venus does serve as a giant warning sign floating right next door. A reminder that planetary climates can change dramatically under the right conditions. As the saying goes, fire is a good servant but a bad master. The same greenhouse effect that keeps Earth warm enough for life on Venus became unstoppable. And maybe that's the most fascinating part of the whole story. Venus isn't just a dead planet. It's a cautionary tale written across an entire world. A reminder that Earth's oceans, atmosphere, and comfortable climate are not guaranteed forever. They're the result of an incredibly delicate balance. In a strange way, Venus is like a mirror. When we look at it, we're not just seeing another planet. We're seeing a possible version of what Earth could have become under different circumstances. A world that may once have had oceans, and ended up as the hottest planet in the solar system. Imagine being told, "Congratulations, you've been selected for a mission to Venus." Sounds exciting for about 3 seconds. Then you remember where you're going. No breathable air. No water. No escape from the heat, just crushing pressure, toxic clouds, and temperatures hot enough to turn metal soft. On Venus, survival isn't measured in days. It's measured in minutes. And yet, humans still went there. Well, sort of. Beginning in the 1960s, the Soviet Union launched one of the boldest space programs ever attempted, the Venera missions. More than 20 spacecraft were sent toward Venus between the 1960s and early 1980s. Each one was basically a volunteer entering the solar system's most dangerous neighborhood. And Venus did not play nice. Many probes failed before they even arrived, some lost communication, others were destroyed by the atmosphere like bugs hitting a windshield. But in 1970, one tiny machine made history. Venera 7 became the first spacecraft to successfully land on another planet and send data back to Earth. The catch: it survived only about 23 minutes. That's it. After traveling millions of kilometers through space, it lasted less time than an episode of a sitcom. Still, those few minutes changed planetary science forever. Scientists back on Earth watched the incoming signals like gamblers staring at the final card on the table. Every second mattered. And Venus kept raising the stakes. A few years later, Venera 9 and Venera 10 managed to send back the first images from the Venusian surface. The photos were eerie. Dark rocks of broken terrain. A landscape that looked less like a planet and more like the ruins of some cosmic disaster. Then in 1982, Venera 13 delivered the first color images from Venus. For the first time, humanity truly saw the surface of Earth's terrifying twin. And honestly, it looked exactly how you'd imagine hell would look after a volcanic eruption. The incredible part is that these probes were never expected to live long. Engineers built them like armored tanks wrapped in ovens. Some had special heat-resistant coatings several millimeters thick, basically the spacecraft equivalent of wearing a fireproof winter jacket into a furnace. Even then, Venus usually won. As the saying goes, if you play with fire, you get burned. Meanwhile, the United States joined the mission too. In 1978, NASA launched the Pioneer Venus missions to study the atmosphere and orbit the planet. What they found was astonishing. Venus wasn't calm at all. Its atmosphere was violently active, with winds screaming through the clouds at incredible speeds. The upper atmosphere circles the planet far faster than the planet itself rotates. Imagine Earth's jet stream after drinking 10 cups of coffee. Then came the 1990s and NASA's Magellan spacecraft. This mission changed everything. Instead of relying on cameras, Magellan used radar to peer through Venus's thick cloud cover. It was like giving scientists X-ray vision. For the first time, we got detailed maps of the surface, gigantic volcanoes, massive lava plains, strange mountain ranges, and scars left by ancient geological chaos. Suddenly Venus stopped being a blurry mystery. It became a real world. A terrifying one, but a real one. Japan also joined the effort with the Nozomi mission, hoping to study Venus's atmosphere and magnetic environment. The mission faced technical problems and never fully achieved its goals, but it showed that Venus had become an international scientific obsession. Because the truth is, Venus challenges everything. It destroys electronics, crushes machinery, melts hardware. Sending a probe there is less like space exploration and more like dropping technology into a volcano and hoping for the best. And yet scientists keep trying. Today, researchers are designing new ideas: floating drones, balloon laboratories drifting high in the atmosphere, even missions searching for strange chemical signs that might hint at microbial life in the clouds. Not on the surface, of course, nothing we know could survive down there for long. But higher in the atmosphere, that mystery is still open. And maybe that's why Venus remains so fascinating. Every mission there feels like a survival horror movie mixed with real science. Short lifespans, extreme danger, tiny windows of success. But every bit of data we collect pulls back the curtain a little more. Because beneath the brightest planet in our sky is one of the harshest worlds humans have ever dared to explore. By now, it's pretty clear that life on the surface of Venus has about the same survival chances as an ice cube in a volcano. The ground is hot enough to melt metal, the pressure can crush machines, and the atmosphere is packed with corrosive chemicals. So if you're a tiny microbe thinking about vacation spots, Venus is probably a hard pass. But here's where the story takes a strange turn. Scientists started looking higher. Way higher. About 50 to 60 kilometers above the surface, Venus suddenly becomes, weirdly comfortable. Temperatures there range roughly between 30 and 70 degrees Celsius. Pressure levels are surprisingly close to Earth's atmosphere. Compared to the surface below, it's almost paradise. Well, paradise with acid clouds and hurricane-force winds. Still, it completely changed the conversation. Then in 2020, researchers announced something that sent the scientific world into full detective mode: possible signs of phosphine gas in Venus's atmosphere. Now, phosphine might not sound exciting, but on Earth, this gas is strongly connected to microbial life. That doesn't mean aliens are floating around Venus wearing tiny space helmets. But it does raise a fascinating possibility. Could microscopic life survive inside the clouds? Suddenly, Venus transformed from dead planet to maybe not entirely dead. And honestly, the idea is wild. Imagine tiny airborne organisms drifting through thick yellow clouds, surviving inside droplets of acid while violent winds toss them across the sky, like microscopic sky surfers in the solar system's strangest weather report. Of course, not everyone agrees. Some scientists argue the phosphine detection may have been a mistake, others think unusual volcanic or chemical reactions could explain it naturally. So the debate is still very much alive. But that's the beauty of science. Sometimes one strange signal is enough to crack open an entirely new mystery. As the saying goes, where there's smoke, there might be fire. Or in this case, maybe microbes. And even if Venus turns out to be lifeless, it's still one of the most visually insane worlds we've ever studied. Forget the idea of a flat, boring wasteland. Venus has giant volcanoes, endless lava plains, enormous impact craters, and mountain ranges stretching across the horizon. One of the biggest volcanoes, Mont Mons, towers nearly 8 kilometers high. Picture standing near it. The ground glowing orange in places, dark volcanic rock everywhere, the sky covered in thick yellow haze. It wouldn't feel like another planet. It would feel like the final level of a video game. And the atmosphere only makes it more surreal. The sunlight barely reaches the surface through the thick sulfuric clouds, so Venus lives in a permanent dim orange twilight. No blue skies. No stars overhead, just endless haze and distant volcanic landscapes fading into darkness. Meanwhile, far above you, the winds scream through the atmosphere at hundreds of kilometers per hour. The surface moves slowly, the clouds race around the planet like they're late for an appointment. Venus is basically a planet built entirely out of contradictions. Beautiful from space, terrifying up close. Deadly on the surface, potentially more stable in the clouds. Even today, scientists think Venus may still be volcanically active. Radar observations suggest lava flows could still be reshaping parts of the planet right now. So Venus isn't just some dead rock sitting near the sun. It's alive in its own violent way. And maybe that's why people can't stop thinking about it. Because Venus feels less like a planet, and more like a warning, a mystery, and a science fiction world all rolled into one. A place where beauty and danger walk hand in hand. After everything we've seen, the volcanic wastelands, crushing atmosphere, acid clouds, and possible microbes floating high above the surface, you start asking the obvious question. How did Venus and Earth end up so different? Because here's the strange part. On paper, they almost look like siblings. Venus is only slightly smaller than Earth. They're both rocky planets, both formed in the inner solar system, both likely started with similar ingredients billions of years ago. At first glance, Venus feels like Earth's twin. Just, the evil twin. Scientists even think that around 4 billion years ago, Venus may have had a much milder climate, maybe clouds, maybe rain, possibly even oceans. Imagine looking at the early solar system and seeing two potentially habitable worlds sitting side by side. One became Earth. The other became a furnace hot enough to melt lead. Talk about taking a wrong turn. The biggest difference seems to come down to climate runaway. Venus received more energy from the sun, and over time that extra heat triggered a chain reaction. Water evaporated, the atmosphere trapped more heat, volcanoes released enormous amounts of carbon dioxide, the greenhouse effect intensified. Then it spiraled completely out of control. Little by little, Venus lost the balance Earth somehow managed to keep. And that's what makes Venus so important scientifically. It's not just a terrifying planet. It's a warning label written across an entire world. Because when scientists study Venus, they're also studying Earth's future possibilities, the limits of climate systems, atmospheric chemistry, and how delicate planetary balance really is. A few changes in temperature. A thicker atmosphere, more trapped carbon dioxide. That's all it took for two similar planets to end up living completely different stories. One became a blue world full of oceans and life. The other became a pressure cooker wrapped in toxic clouds. Same solar system, of very different endings. As the saying goes, a small leak can sink a great ship. Tiny differences, over millions of years, can change everything. And maybe that's the emotional side of Venus people don't talk about enough. It reminds us that Earth's comfortable environment isn't guaranteed forever. The oceans, forests, breathable air, and stable climate we enjoy today are actually incredibly fragile when viewed on a cosmic scale. Venus is like a giant mirror hanging next door in space, showing us what can happen when a planet loses control of its climate. Not tomorrow, not next week, but eventually, under the wrong conditions, worlds can transform completely. And yet, Venus is still strangely beautiful. Imagine floating high in its upper atmosphere, above the deadly surface. The temperature there is surprisingly mild. The golden clouds stretch endlessly below you. The sun glows dimly through the haze. Maybe microscopic life drifts through those clouds, maybe not. But just the possibility is enough to keep scientists dreaming, because that's the thing about Venus. The deeper we explore it, the more it stops feeling like just another planet. It becomes a story. A story about climate, about survival, about how thin the line really is between paradise and catastrophe. Earth and Venus began with similarities that were almost uncanny. But in the end, one world became home, and the other became a cosmic cautionary tale. So here's the question. If humans could one day build floating cities high in the Venusian clouds, would you go? Would you drift above a planet-sized inferno searching for signs of life? Or would you stay right here on Earth, appreciating just how rare and precious this blue planet really is? The people who change the world usually just think one step deeper. If this story made you see things differently, hit like, subscribe, and save it. See you in the next story.